last 24 months, amidst Xi Jinping's rule inside China, there's been continuous reports regarding this anti-corruption campaign between what is the Xi Jinping faction and the Jiang faction, the Jiang Zemin faction, a former communist leader. We've heard countless reports from all the major media. Epoch Times has consistently reported on this issue, but the one central issue seems to be what is Falunьgun. Talk to us about that.
Well, I think one very interesting aspect of this is that this line of analysis that the anti-corruption campaign has been a struggle between Xi and Jiang has begun to emerge in other sources. I mean, this was like our shtick for some time, and then you're seeing this kind of narrative appear in other places. That's very interesting, seeing that because it's very obvious, and it had been from the beginning. And we had analysts and sources from inside China discussing this since early 2012. I mean, they saw all this coming. And yes, they saw that as related to the Falunьgun issue. So it's a spiritual practice. It was huge in China in the 1990s, persecuted in 99, had between 70 and 100 million people. That figure, 70 million, is from the sports administration. So it was a huge chunk of the Chinese population. The persecution of it was not popular, very contentious. So I mean, it swept up the whole country, and in the ensuing years, like Zhang Zemin stepped down in 2002, and over the next decade, basically maintained and even extended his power inside the party through his lieutenants in key roles. So top, like Zhou Yongkang, Bo Xilai was another one. And so it's these guys that have been being eliminated by Xi Jinping over the last 2-3 years.
Of course, there's been continuous reports over the last several months now. You know, from July on, fluctuations in the Chinese stock markets. You know, the Chinese economy does not look strong at all. Does this impede the process of this anti-corruption campaign by Xi Jinping against Jiang and the Jiang Zemin factions?
It's really hard to know, of course. I mean, what's going on behind the scenes? It really depends. I mean, what Xi Jinping thinks his options are and what he would benefit by doing and in what order. Certainly, I think the economic pressure is only going to mount, and Xi Jinping may have some really tough choices. As you know, if there is bigger, like if there's an actual crisis in the economy, not just the stock market trouble that we saw earlier, but some bigger problems related with debt, maybe that can all be contained. And if that's all stable, maybe he would continue to pursue anti-corruption, whether Jiang is at the end or it could be Jiang, one of Jiang's lieutenants, Zheng Qinghong. We kind of don't even know. I mean, perhaps some of that was put on hold because of the ructions in the stock market and the general sense of unease also around Tianjin. I mean, he may have his hands full, or he could find that the right time to strike and then make some bigger reforms going forward. I think there's so much we have no idea about what goes on inside. You know, we can see very clearly these trend lines, but the specifics and the timing is always unclear.
I see. Is it reasonable to foresee an arrest of Jiang Zemin somewhere here in the near future?
I think it would be crazy to rule it out. Whether it actually happens or when, we really don't know. Jiang is 89, so whether she is just waiting for him to die, we don't know that either. It would depend on so many factors that related with, you know, the political calculus that would be going on. One would imagine that they would have reached a truce, but perhaps that's just insufficient to really get the kind of control that Xi Jinping probably needs to do the things that he wants to do in the system. I think back in 2012, people were laughing at the idea that the Wang Lijun, you know, Bo Xilai's chief of police, going to the consulate in Chengdu would result in very much. And our people and sources inside China were saying that Bo Xilai is next, and then Zhou Yongkang after that. And so there's just this natural progression, because this has been the, you know, the core, basically a political dynasty or this structure of power embedded in the Communist Party for all these years that is being changed now. That change isn't complete. So whether that would result in Jiang's arrest or that of Zheng Qinghong, we're really unsure. But certainly it's totally on the cards, given the huge uncertainties in Chinese politics, and depending on how Xi Jinping could enhance his position by it. Certainly, I think I would not be surprised if it happens, although there could be many reasons why it doesn't.
And we'll be hearing more from Matthew Robertson, China editor for the English Epoch Times, later in the week. Thanks a lot, Matt.
Pleasure.